Ping noticed that they were running short on some, heading out to look for water, and he left, but he was never seen again. There was a huge search. I don't know what happened to the other two. This article didn't tell me anything about it, so they could still be missing. We're now at our 5th and halfway mark with the missing policewoman. In 2016, a female officer named Ashwini Bidri went missing. She told her landlord that she was going home for a few days, so he was to let the milkman know that he shouldn't leave any milk out for her. Later that day, she was spotted near Than railway station. That was the last time anyone had seen or heard from her. For 3 months, Ashwini was missing with no solid leads. Those 3 months turned into years. Finally, in 2018, a man was arrested for her disappearance. The man's name was Abhay Karundkar. He was actually the senior inspector that worked with Ashwini. Turns out the two had a thing going on behind the scenes. He apparently took her life and dumped her body in the street. Sadly, her body has never been found. Moving on to number 4, we have Inspector V.S. Navis. In 2019, Inspector V.S. Navis went missing after getting in a heated argument. The night before, Navis got in a fight with a senior official. The next day, he was gone without a trace. Now, Navis's wife believes that he fled because of mental torture that he was subjected to at work. He was also repeatedly humiliated at work. It was getting way too much for him, so he left. Now, he was last seen on CCTV footage withdrawing cash from an ATM. His force went out looking for him, but Navis's wife told them to just let him be and have time for himself. In our 3rd spot, we have Stephen Bear. In 2016, Littleton police officer Stephen Bear went climbing at Mount Elbrus. It is the tallest mountain in Europe. On June 12th, Stephen called his wife Olivia and said he arrived safely in Russia. That's the last time she ever spoke to him. Stephen went on his climb and was never seen again. Now, Stephen was climbing this solo, so there was no one else there with him to help him along the way. So we might never know what happened to him on that climb. What's also challenging is that when he was reported missing, there was a huge... there was a huge blizzard, so tracking him down was near impossible. While out looking for him, they did find 2 bodies, but to this day, they still haven't found Stephen. It's honestly a heartbreaking story, like poor Stephen and poor Olivia and her 2 sons. And at number 2, we have Catherine Campbell. In September of 2015, Officer Catherine Campbell went missing without a trace. She was first reported missing when she didn't arrive to work on September 14th. It was very out of character for her to not show up to work. Police then searched her apartment and they found her TV on, her alarm clock ringing, and her cats hungry looking for food. Eventually, police were able to track down Catherine's last movements. CCTV footage showed her at a bar with a man named Christopher Calvin Garner. At the bar, they were seen kissing and talking. They then left together at 3:40 in the morning. That was the last time Catherine was seen alive. CCTV footage of that night revealed Christopher rolling out a green bin down his street in bare feet. A while later, Catherine's body was found. The green bin Christopher was last seen with was found abandoned nearby. He was caught for her murder. And in our number 1 spot, we have the river diving gone wrong. In January of 2018, a French policewoman went missing while taking part in a training exercise. So on that day, this woman and a bunch of other officers were at a river in Paris. They were doing diving exercises run by the Specialist River Police and firefighters in the French capital. That's when she suddenly disappeared. According to reports, she resurfaced from her dive and then quickly disappeared again. When this happened, colleagues went to look for her, but to no avail. There were 100 firefighters, 17 divers, 20 boats, and 2 helicopters out looking for her. Sadly, she has still never been found. Everyone is shocked at how fast she disappeared, and also how there's no signs of her. Starting on up this list in our number 10 spot, we have pink dolphins. There's a few weird things going on with these guys, but let's start with the most obvious, which is of course their color. These residents of the Amazon River are the largest of all river dolphins, and adults end up acquiring a strange pink coloring, which is more prominent in the males. Scientists aren't exactly sure why these guys are pink or why their color comes later in life, as they are born with a more gray color that is usually expected of dolphins. There are of course theories as to how they get their colors, however, with the most common being the thought that the color is brought on by scar tissue that results from either rough games or fighting with other pink dolphins or predators. I said at the beginning of this point that they are strange for a few reasons, and while their super unique and gorgeous color is one, the other has less to do with them and more about a very interesting legend that surrounds them. Legend goes that these dolphins actually transform into very handsome men in the evenings, and during this time they hypnotize and seduce young women before turning back to dolphins again near sunrise. The origins of this myth are rooted in some pretty dark cover-ups, so I think it's best if we just lay that one to rest and let these dolphins not take the blame for humans' awful behavior. In our number 9 spot today, we have the boiling river. It is pretty common knowledge that the Amazon is home to the longest river in the world, but there is another river found in the Amazon rainforest that is equally as astonishing, but for a very different reason. The boiling river got its name for being exactly that, as it is a river that is near a boiling point at all times. The water temperature reaches up to 93 degrees Celsius, which is just shy of the boiling point, and the steam coming off of the surface of the water is an obvious warning to all living creatures that it is absolutely unswimmable. You could, however, poach an egg in this river, although that's probably not the recommended cooking method. There is still debate around the source of heat for this river, but as of right now, it is believed to be entirely natural and geothermal. Despite the river not being near any active volcanoes or geothermal vents, it is quite an anomaly. There are, of course, more local legends that state the river is a place of power and that the Mother of Waters is responsible for the creation of this incredible and strange river. Either way, just don't swim in the river and everything will be fine. In our number 8 spot today, we have Victoria Amazonica. This water lily is one of many abnormally large things that can be found in the Amazon rainforest, and it is found in the shallow waters of the Amazon River basin. These lilies are not only the world's largest water lily, but they can also hold the weight of an adult human. They will begin to flower as the sun sets and take up to 48 hours to completely open, and they are absolutely beautiful. These flowers are not only super strong and super beautiful, but as they open, they also release a wonderful scent, which leaves me wondering if there's anything they can't do. One thing to be careful of, though, if you encounter one and decide to step on it, it is that their leaves have thorns to protect them from predators, so watch out for those. Actually, on a second thought, just because they can hold a human doesn't mean we have to step on them at all. Let's just admire their beauty and strength from afar and let them just be lilies like they're meant to be. In our number 7 spot today, we have the Patu. I don't know if that's how you say that, but that's what we're going with. Okay, these guys definitely aren't the strangest thing on today's list, but they certainly look extremely strange. I'm sure a lot of us have seen a picture of them at some point because of their wild appearance that reminds you of your one friend that just can't quite keep it together. But despite them having a bit of a silly look on their faces, these birds actually possess some pretty cool skills. They are masters at disguising themselves and have the ability to remain motionless for days on end. They're nocturnal creatures, so it isn't often that we get to spot them flying around, and during the daytime they're so good at camouflaging themselves that you'll likely only be seeing them if they want to be seen. This is just one of those scenarios where we are reminded to not judge a book by its cover, because despite their goofy appearance, they're actually pretty serious birds with some serious talent. In our number 6 spot today, we have the bullet ant. Before I dive into this one, guys, please don't forget to hit the thumbs up button if you're enjoying the video so far. I'm sure the bullet ant is one creature on this list that many of us know about, but that certainly doesn't mean it isn't very strange. These creatures are obviously ants, but with one feature that makes them unlike others of their kind. They are the world's largest ant, which is cool, but their name is where things get a little crazy. Some people believe they are named for their size, as they are roughly the size of a bullet, but it is much more... widely speculated that they are named because of the fact that their sting feels the ceiling of caves in order to get to the bats, which is both incredible and so...
the Rainbow Road to Oz. When I was a kid, pretty much every kid knew the Wizard of Oz. No, I don't know if the new generation has seen it as much as we did, and I can't blame them if they skipped it. The Wizard of Oz was made in the 1950s. It is worse special effects than a YouTube channel that has less than 1,000 followers. Trust me, the new generation is not missing much. But for its time, the movie was a massive success. It rippled through culture more than The Rock doing the rock bottom of John Cena at WrestleMania. Nowadays, if you make a movie that huge, especially if it's owned by Disney, you better believe that it's going to get a sequel, a cartoon, a toy line, and 1,000 other things that will make sure they suck the most money out of the film. But back then, having a huge success meant that the movie should stand alone in all its glory. This is the reason why the sequel to The Wizard of Oz, The Rainbow Road to Oz, was never made. The studio heads at Disney were working on the project, but it wasn't coming together. Even though the movie was fully casted and Disney had a script ready to go, there were fears that there was no way a sequel could live up to the original and would just bomb because people wouldn't accept an extension to the story. Also, apparently the script wasn't that good. But now that I have put this idea out to the universe, I'm sure someone at Disney will bring back The Wizard of Oz at Disney, because Disney loves nostalgia more than I do. And guys, make sure you hit that like button because it really helps us out. Coming at number 9, we have Don Quixote. It shouldn't be a surprise that Disney has tried to make one of the most famous stories of all time and turn it into a Disney classic. I mean, we have already covered how much they love to work with nostalgia, and on top of that, do you think they wrote The Jungle Book, Snow White, Little Mermaid, Sleeping Beauty, Beauty and the Beast, or Hercules? Of course not. Those are all based off of old stories or legends, so Don Quixote seems like it would be right up their alley. The man from La Mancha who would woo any woman and slay any man. He was the original bad dude that lived by the mantra, women want him and men want to be him. Now, Disney would of course cut out all the sexy bits because we're trying to shove this into something that would be appropriate for a younger audience. And what would be the best way to do this? Well, of course it would be to have Mickey Mouse play him. Apparently, there was a squash Don Quixote project that saw the legendary Spanish knight played by the Disney mascot. I don't think Mickey pulls as much water as he once did, so if this project actually does see the light of day, I don't think we'll have him played by the famous animated mouse. Coming in a break, we have the Brementown Musicians. Disney movies that are about giving everything up to go chase a dream are pretty normal, but back in the day, they needed to have a more conservative message than the Brementown Musicians. Here's the backbone of the story. You have 4 main characters that are all getting up in age. You got a cat, a rooster, a dog, and a donkey. Now, because of their old age, they can feel themselves becoming useless on the farm, and they know sooner or later they're going to be replaced. Well, instead of waiting for Judgment Day, this motley crew decides that they will go to the big city and try and make it as musicians. Now, if you ask me, that sounds like a great story, but most Disney movies of that era were either a princess ending up with a prince or some scrappy boy becoming a king. Basically, in the end, they all have a stable life. And a movie that might have inspired kids to leave everything behind to try and make it in the unstable world of entertainment could have sent home a message that got parents a little worked up back in the 90s. Coming in at number 7, we have DuckTales, the movie. DuckTales used to be huge. A show about 3 rambunctious humanoid ducks who went to go visit their rich uncle who would jump off a diving board into a pool filled with gold coins. Yeah, the show was made in a time before the majority of the public had a burning hatred for people who flaunted their wealth. But ignoring a duck that's literally swimming in money while others are struggling to get food on the table, DuckTales was a show that was all about adventure and mystery. The gang going to far-off places to seeing what the dark corners of the earth had to offer. I loved one of the DuckTale games so much that I used to play the DuckTale game endlessly on my Sega Game Gear. I don't think I ever beat it, and now I have this urge to go back and play it. I just need to get my hands on a Sega Game Gear.
Fuck off.
But there was one DuckTales movie, Treasure of the Lost Land, which was supposed to be the first in a series of DuckTales movies. Unfortunately for DuckTales fans, the movie kind of bombed in the box office, and all future movies were thrown in the trash. Coming in at number 6, we have Puss in Boots. Way before DreamWorks took the now beloved character and brought him into the Shrekverse, there was a movie in the works that was supposed to star the little feline in shoes. This movie was supposed to come out in 1991, but some complications meant that it never made it to the big screen. It was going to star Little Cat in Big Shoes in a hand-drawn adventure, probably saving a princess because that's what all those stories were about back then. But I'm happy that this one never came to the light of day because now we have the Shrek Puss in Boots. Coming in number 5, we have Where is Roger Rabbit? For some, Who Framed Roger Rabbit was a very important part of our childhood. And when you go back to watch it now, you might be surprised that our parents let us watch it. I mean, Jessica Rabbit isn't the most child-appropriate character that has ever been in a kid's movie. Let's just say that if they did a remake today, she would get the Lola Bunny treatment times 1 million. But there were plans to bring the hyperactive rabbit and the My Way or the Highway detective back to the big screen in a movie that was called Where is Roger Rabbit, which I assume was the same detective trying to hunt down the famous animated actor who had disappeared. This movie was slated for the early 90s, so there probably would have been just as much cleavage. Coming in at number 4, we have The Nightmare Before Christmas 2. When I tell you there was a sequel to Nightmare Before Christmas that was canceled, there are going to be a few people watching this that are going to be furious.
Which I would never join.
I always pick this as my favorite Disney movie, well, either Nightmare Before Christmas or Hercules. But Nightmare Before Christmas was so good, and there was so much left to explore. Why did we not get more from Jack Skellington? Well, rumor has it that Disney wanted the movie, but they wanted to make one major change. Instead of having the movie all shot in stop-motion animation, they wanted to move it to CG. Now, obviously, a big part of the movie is the look of the stop-motion animation. Director Tim Burton understood this, and he was the one who got Disney to change their minds and cancel the project. And I don't blame him either. It's better to have one great film than one great film and a sequel that kind of tarnishes the reputation of the first. Also, let's start an argument in the comments. Is The Nightmare Before Christmas a Christmas movie or a Halloween movie? Let me know what you think, and you can't say both. Coming in number 3, we have The Yellow Submarine. If Marvel has taught us anything, it's that people love collabs, whether it's Iron Man teaming up with Spider-Man, or in this case, the Beatles teaming up with Disney. Back in 2011, Disney was looking into doing a remake of the animated movie about the Beatles that came out back in the 60s. That would have been wild. For the first time since Alice in Wonderland, Disney might have made a movie that was both appropriate for kids and appealing to 20-somethings that were pumped full of psilocybin. Now, even though this seems like a no-brainer, the movie was canned, mainly because the director and writer of the remake, Robert Zemeckis, just had a movie bomb. Disney loves to bring in new talent. I mean, they brought in Taika Waititi to direct Thor Ragnarok, and it was a smash hit, but they don't want to bring you in if you just laid a stinky egg at the box office. Coming in at number 2, we have the Seven Dwarves. Who were these hard-working mythical creatures before they ran into Snow White as she screamed through a haunted forest? Well, they lived a full life, and Disney wanted to make that on-screen canon. What's most enticing about this was it was supposed to be a Lord of the Rings-style world that showcased the land that the Seven Dwarves were actually from, with a complete backstory on why each one of them are the way that they are. It would have been so cool to see an explanation on why their personalities are so defined, but before you feel like you were robbed of a Snow White extended universe, let me tell you that these movies were supposed to be straight to DVD and were never planned for the big screen. Coming in at the number 1 spot, we have Monsters, Inc. 2, Lost in Scaradise. You know when a movie has a full title with a colon and a pun in its name, it was far down the production line. Well, you don't know that for sure, but with the details that were leaked about this movie, it would seem that the script was done. All that needed to happen was Disney to give it the green light. Now, the movie was about Mike and Sully making their way over to the human world, as if having one human around wasn't enough to deal with. They thought they should head to another dimension where there are billions, but their motivations were just. They wanted to give Boo a birthday present. Just picturing them doing that makes me think of Sully putting the door back together so he can see Boo one last time, and I get so choked up. But when Sully and Mike Wazowski cross to the other side, they end up getting stuck in the other world. They then need to find their way back. Now, the movie didn't happen because the animation studio where the writers and scripters worked, Circle 7, ended up getting closed down, and thus Disney was much less interested in the project as they needed to find somewhere to have it made.
In at number 10, we have Ren and Stimpy, the man's best friend episode. Okay, so there was a character in Ren and Stimpy called George Liquor, and he was the main focus of the ill-fated man's best friend episode that was banned from Nickelodeon. In the episode, George threatens Ren and Stimpy, but ultimately Ren beats George with an oar until his eyes pop out of his head. Now, this episode was apparently the reason Ren and Stimpy creator John Crick-Halsey was fired. It's all fun and games until a cartoon character loses an eye and somebody loses their job. At number 7, we have SpongeBob SquarePants. The whole thing. So every single episode of SpongeBob SquarePants is banned in China, and even the Ukrainian government want to axe the show. Now, the Chinese government banned SpongeBob not just because it didn't quite meet the country's values, but because they wanted to promote Chinese cartoons rather than promote American ones. Morality police in the Ukraine, on the other hand, have dubbed SpongeBob as gay, saying he provokes homosexuality. So there we go. In at number 6, we have the Powerpuff Girls episode, See Me, Feel Me, Know Me. Now, there's still a lot of mystery surrounding this episode of the Powerpuff Girls, which was intended to be the season finale for season 5. Now, the episode was all fun and games, a rock musical opera to be precise, but it mysteriously was never aired on the Cartoon Network. Reportedly, this is because the episode had some capitalist versus communist vibes. Now, the episode school and thinking, yay, penguins, love them. I certainly never saw this episode. So Pingu and his baby brother drink a whole load of soda. The baby penguin then wets himself everywhere. Pingu then rushes home because he needs to pee himself, and eventually he pees himself right in front of the toilet on the floor. Now, the episode is very graphic. There is urine literally everywhere, which is why it was banned. It has also been left off the video and DVD releases. In at number 3, we have Cow and Chicken, the Buffalo Gals episode. Now, this one is pretty awkward. Do you guys remember Cow and Chicken? It was like a show from the 90s, and me and my sister used to watch it all the time. I, for one, loved it. Anyway, back then, cartoons weren't quite so politically correct, and an episode of the show called Buffalo Girls was banned due to its inappropriate and stereotypical demonstration of lesbians. Basically, this episode focused on a biker gang of females with butch haircuts. There was a whole load of inappropriate jokes, and essentially, the ladies then came in and started inexplicably chewing carpets. Which, if you don't get, don't worry, let's just say it's not cool, and the episode was banned. Starting us off at number 10 is Fire Mountain. In the mid-90s, Fire Mountain was an unbuilt roller coaster that park officials were considering adding to the Adventureland area of the Magic Kingdom. The ride was based on the film Atlantis, The Lost Empire, and would have taken parkgoers to an active volcano located between Splash Mountain and Pirates of the Caribbean. The story of the ride was set in 1916. Preston Whitmore is trying to make Atlantis' existence public and starts offering expeditions to visitors. The vehicles they're in are forced to unexpectedly take a detour through the volcano.
But the whole plan was cancelled due to the film doing shockingly bad and underperforming at the box office. The ride was originally designed to be built to compete with Universal Studios' Islands of Adventure, but after visiting it and basically realizing that it was a mess and no threat to Walt Disney World, they decided to just cancel the whole construction of this ride.
Before we visited, they're like, this ain't cool.
They're like, oh, this is our competition.
Yeah.
Never mind. In our 9th spot, we have The Nightmare Before Christmas. I am disappointed that this project never got finished because I'm a huge fan of The Nightmare Before Christmas, and Jack Skellington is just a classic movie. Is it a movie to watch during Halloween? Is it a movie to watch during Christmas? The answer is, it's a movie to watch during both of my favorite holidays. Like, that's amazing. But anyways, The Nightmare Before Christmas ride was going to be built beside the evil It's a Small World ride at Disneyland. Seriously, that ride is cursed or something. It was going to have guests in a flying coffin help Jack save Christmas. And at the end of the ride, it was going to show Jack and Sally hugging in snow. How cute. But for some reason, the project was scrapped. However, every year from Halloween to Christmas, Disneyland redecorates the Haunted Mansion ride to be Nightmare Before Christmas themed. So, in a way, we get our nightmare fix, but not in the way that they originally intended.
At number 8, we have Park Century Resorts. The foundation of the resort had two parts to it, the legendary years and the classic years, and those two parts were connected by a bridge called the Generation Gap. Very literal and ironic, I know. But the legendary years would have represented the 1900s all the way to the 40s, and the classic years would have represented the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s. The original plan was for the resort to open in 2001, but then due to construction delays, it was pushed back another year. And then 9/11 happened, which plummeted tourism to basically nothing. The opening was then postponed again because there was zero demand for hotel rooms. Construction on the classic years side continued until its opening in 2003, but the legendary years side hasn't been touched since 2001. In 2006, Disney announced they would restart construction on the abandoned side, but that never happened. LOL. In 2010, it was announced Disney's Art of Animation Resort would be replacing the legendary side, but the original buildings still stand. As for the classic year side, we don't talk about that no more.
Making our way down the list to number 7, we have the Food Rocks. Food Rocks was opened in 1994 and featured a musical show with animatronic figures. Kind of like the Chuck E. Cheese band, but more classy in a way and less scary.
I don't think it can be classy in any way.
Well, I don't know. The Chuck E. Cheese band is terrifying with their
really
evil eyes. The Food Rocks was an animatronic show in the Land Pavilion at Epcot. It opened in 1994 and was all about the importance of eating healthy. The animatronics were different types of food, but with human features. They then would make funny parodies of songs like "Every Breath You Take" was "Every Bite You Take."
That's a great song, first of all. Just wanted to put that out there. The vaudeville-style show was basically meant to teach kids about the 4 food groups, but was eventually shut down in 2004. But according to Modern Mouse Radio, the whole stage was left intact and is just hidden behind the walls. Even the animatronic figures are said to be resting behind the walls, so while you're queuing up for that flight simulator ride, just remember those singing food items are right there.
Ew. Can you imagine if they just started singing all of a sudden? They're like, "Every bite you take."
Dude, I get so scared. I'm like,
what is this coming from?
Are you hearing that? Like, where is that? So creepy.
In our 6th spot, we have the Beastly Kingdom. The original plans for the Animal Kingdom was supposed to incorporate 3 categories of animals: real, extinct, and imaginary. So the Beastly Kingdom was supposed to be a section of the Animal Kingdom Park that focused on mythological animals. They had plans to have a quest of the Unicorn Hedge Maze, a boat ride based on Fantasia, and even a massive castle home to a fire-breathing dragon. Like, that sounds awesome. And that castle's dragon was planned to be the largest animatronic creature in the whole park. Now, there is no conclusive reason as to why this idea was abandoned, but every year there is new hope that Disney will follow through with this idea.
Coming in at number 5 is Walt Disney's Riverfront Square. Okay, so this project was a huge deal because it was meant to be Disney's second park after the one in California. Now, if you weren't aware, Walt Disney grew up in Missouri, so in 1963 he met up with St. Louis's mayor to talk about the plans. It was meant to be a theme park right by the riverfront area, which worked out since the area was already undergoing renovations due to a city celebration. The park would have taken up 2 blocks, and its entrance would have been very similar to Disneyland's Main Street one. Attractions like the Haunted Mansion, Pirates of the Caribbean, and the Western Riverboat ride were all meant to be at this park. Unfortunately, the plans for the park completely fell through in 1965 due to financial and ownership issues. Walt then turned all his focus to the Walt Disney World in Florida, and I mean, it's a good thing he did too. That one's vibing.
Coming in at number 3, we have Cranium Command. The Wonder of the Life Pavilion had a short-lived life. It opened in October of 1989 and closed in 2007. The pavilion was designed to be educational, yet fun. It focused all about the human body. Now, one of the rides at this attraction was called Cranium Command. For this ride, guests were sent on a mission into the human brain of a 12-year-old boy. Yeah, not creepy at all. You were then called a Cranium Commando, and alongside Buzzy, a tiny soldier, you would help complete this mission. Not gonna lie, I've seen footage from this ride, and it looks really creepy. So you're inside a theater that is designed to look like you're inside this boy's head. So you're inside his head, looking out of his eyes, seeing what he is seeing. Then it's kind of like a simulator ride where you just watch the story unfold while your chair vibrates and moves to whatever is happening. But unfortunately, this ride was abandoned after having one of their sponsors back out.
Now, at number 2 is Discovery Island. This 11.5-acre island is located on Walt Disney World's property and was actually open to guests between 1974 to 1999. Walt bought the island in 1965 and it was initially called Treasure Island. Parkgoers went there to look at wildlife because it was essentially a miniature zoo. You could look at animals like flamingos, swans, and more. Fun fact, the island's facilities were the last known home of the dusky seaside sparrow before it went extinct. Things got ugly in 1989 when Peter accused Disney of mistreating vultures that landed on the island. Disney actually even confirmed this by saying some of the birds died while employees tried to capture them. Officials then charged him with 16 counts of animal cruelty, but they were eventually dropped. The island closed in 1999 for undisclosed reasons, and all of its animals got moved to Disney's Animal Kingdom. The island is still there, just sitting there, abandoned with zero signs of development. Funnily enough, a man went to the island in April of this year during the pandemic. He called it a tropical paradise and had no idea it was off limits. He was soon arrested.
And finally, in our number 1 spot is River Country Park. River Country Park opened in 1976 and was the first water park at Walt Disney World. The park was designed to look like a swimming hole and had fake mountains with water slides. But a lot of tragedy occurred at this park, which contributed to being shut down. In 1980, he was killed at the park after getting a bacterial infection from one of the pool's water. The bacteria attacked his brain and nervous system, which then killed him.
I was smiling all throughout she was talking about that death. I wasn't smiling at the death, I was just smiling at something Lindsay did beforehand. I'm a sadistic fool. Either way, I digress. Then, just 2 years later, another passed away at the park. Sadly, he drowned after coming off of one of the water slides. Like, shortly after the first death, they would have improved things, installed more safety measures, at least something.
I guess not, because then in 1989, another drowned there. What's creepy is that their advertisements read, "Bring a swimsuit and a smile. You're likely to wear both out at River Country." More like, "Bring a swimsuit and a death wish." Like, seriously, it's tragic what happened there.